Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. So hello everyone, Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. I've been giving a lot of thought to, and I know there are those of you who would like to focus on Nagarjuna. And I've been rereading a lot of the texts that I have and chanting, giving a lot of thought to how I might proceed. There's a couple of realizations I've come to. Number one is I do have a lot of translations of, my goodness, what is going on with my glasses? Of Nagarjuna texts. First of all, I want to talk about perfection of wisdom, because the truth of that is that a lot of those, although, yes, Nagarjuna spoke on perfection of wisdom, different aspects of perfection of wisdom. He has verses that he dedicated to it. He did expound on it and expand on it. But the perfection of wisdom teachings predate Nagarjuna by some 200 years. So they weren't technically his particular philosophy. He did incorporate them, and he did expand on them, and he did teach them. But some of the teachings that are uniquely his are or most notably his, are the Madhyamika Karika, Mula Madhyamika Karika. But as I was rereading a lot of those texts, I found, as I said, two things. Number one, I don't think it's helpful to read Nagarjuna until you have a particular understanding of Buddhist doesn't fall neatly into one category. If I could name a category that included cosmology, physics, biology, and psychology into one thing, I think the intersection of those is, for me, most notably in the Nidana, of which Nagarjuna dissects and uses himself. And he, in most of the verses and of the Madhyamika, that discussion of the 12-length dependency chain or the dependent origination dialogue comes near the end of all of his argumentation. And I think from that, I think that is a good place for us to start, because our Lotus Sutra practice, our ultimate Mahayana understanding, our facility to understand in this day and age, is quite fundamental on that aspect of the teachings in their entirety, but not explicitly explored in the Lotus Sutra itself, because it's taken as a prerequisite, something assumed knowledge, if you will. And I also noticed that a lot of the books that I have on Nagarjuna, I think because his logic and his vernacular is difficult to I won't say it's difficult to understand. It's just there's a pedantic and an argument building that can be frustrating to understand, to get to the what are you trying to say kind of part of what he's saying. And so there are a lot of books that are 80 to 90% dialogue by experts explaining 2 lines or a stanza of the Madhyamika, and it's easy to get lost in this and these other scholars' versions or ideas or biases on what Nagarjuna is saying, and it's much harder to just stick to what Nagarjuna is saying and glean your own insight from that. That's where I found most of my insights, was just reading Nagarjuna's text alone without commentary, and but it did take time, and I realized as I reread a lot of this stuff that the reason I was able, or a good part of the measure of the reason I was able to have insights, was because I'd already studied much later sutras and ideas and other scholars' ideas on these fundamentals that Nagarjuna was really ripping apart and demonstrating. So, and I keep coming back to this old book that I got a long time ago, and I forget how I found out about it, of Julius Evola, early 20th century scholar, Italian, called The Doctrine of Awakening. And I've recommended this book before on previous videos. But the language that he uses, even though it has, he's Italian, early 20th century, so there's a lot of Christian verbiage in here, but he's not, he's very true, even though his language might slip. He's very, not only scholarly about his definition of the Nidana, but you can sense his zeal for this amazing teaching of the Buddhas of conditioned Genesis. And I have papers on it on threefoldlotus.com. Not his writing, but my own writings on the conditioned Genesis. And I pull from Evola's dialogue because it's so well put and much easier to understand, even though it's still difficult, than Nagarjuna. But he's saying the same things. The 12-length chain is the 12-length chain. And you can, because we're educated in Mahayana, and we understand things like Ichen and Sanzen, and birth and death, and all of that, it becomes more logical to read his definition and his taking apart. And then he has an excellent list of each of the, from the Pali language, each of the steps of the Nidana are in here. And I can't recommend this book enough. It's a real eye-opener, especially when you come at it from not only what you've learned from Lotus Sutra study, but from the critical piece that I'm going to introduce again today, is that all of this dialogue, all of this teaching of Shakyamuni, we tend easily to forget that all of these concepts happen within the samsaric existence, not outside of samsara. See, there's this stigma of the idea that when we're born or when we die, yes, that old thing, that somehow there's this other place that is not samsara that we come from or go to. And that's simply not the case. All of Buddhism, all of our existence, moment to moment, is within this ever-expanding universe, this samsaric reality, this samsaric condition. There's not some other location. See, that's part of the attachment to the I and the self, is the belief that this is an isolated, insular, unique thing, this I that I construct every moment. And everything else is outside of it, and therefore there must be an outside. And that's a major fallacy. That this whole karmic thing doesn't start and end with the human life on Earth. It begins with the universe, instantiates in this tiny little region to perceive itself, and then it self dissolves and goes extinct, and whatever residual energies there are, not of conditions, not unconditioned, if you will, energy, disperses back into the universe. Not with a color, not with a sex, not with an identity. It is identity-less. Because identity is specificity, it's distinction, and that only occurs in the human mind. That distinction isn't a universal thing, but the process that leads to it is a universal thing. This is where there's a lot of confusion. So I thought, since this is something that Nagarjuna spent a lot of time disassembling, I thought I'd challenge myself with you, and I would try to lead you to this understanding from our point of view. Go back the other way. I think it'll become... And then as I was doing Gongyo, I realized that the second meditation in our Gongyo, it's right there. And I've gotten questions by this by many of you who struggle with, what is this self-manifestation thing? And I think it's because of this confusion of coming from nothing and returning to nothing, and we have these terms floating around in our head, like self and other, and these distinctions. And that's the monkey mind at work. That is just not what is going on. So I thought I would start with a mirror. And now, everybody's different. So I'm going to talk about some things that may not seem to apply to you directly. But I would challenge you to understand what I'm saying conceptually, even if it's not your specific experience, because you're smart and you know what I'm going to talk about. Even if it's not your specific experience, you can empathize, you can understand, you can certainly know it as a truth of our experience. So I'm going to talk about the I, the singular letter I, the self, if you will. This identification of uniqueness. And you ladies are probably going to relate to this a lot more, because what I keep thinking about is pimples. But guys, you have pimples too. What I want to say is, when you wake up in the morning, you already have uncountable, unfathomable decisions made in your mind as to who you are, what you are, and largely what you look like. Now, I could be Nagarjuna and spend the next 6 years describing every one of those stages and what they consist of. But I think you know what I'm talking about. So I'm going to move on. And I'm going to walk into the bathroom, turn the light on, and look in the mirror. The moment your eyes connect the image in the mirror with you, you're going to make thousands of decisions about you. Now, I want you to consider for a moment that in that first moment of realization of your image in the mirror, and that flood of thoughts about you, what's different about you, what's right, what's wrong about you, what's tall or short about you, what color your hair, your skin, your eyes. As you're looking, you're dissecting yourself, and you're making various decisions. I'm older, I'm younger, I'm decrepit, I'm ugly, I'm pretty. Thousands of decisions are happening in that moment. And I want you to think about for a moment that each of those decisions immediately instantiate as another one next to you. That all the thoughts that you're having, even the ones you're not quite conscious of, are actually instantiating themselves as that opinion, as that judgment, as that realization, as a distinctly separate you. How quickly would the bathroom fill up with you? Let me extend that question a little further. Something catches your attention. With your eye consciousness, you perceive something new. And so you scooch into the mirror a little bit, and you see it. There it is, a pimple. Immediately, 100,000 new yous manifest in the room. Right? Suddenly, you're not the person you were when you woke up. And you'll never be that person again. Because, oh my God, pimple. Now what are your judgments saying? Oily skin, that crap I bought at the market didn't work. Advertisers are junk. How much money have I spent on this? Oh my God, I'm ugly. Everybody's going to see this. What am I going to do? Do I pop it? Do I glop stuff on it? Do I put makeup over it? Oh my God, I'm old, I'm depressed, I'm ugly, I'm no longer pretty, I'm fat, I'm tall, I'm short. Do you even perceive the rest of your body? Or is it all focused on this? And that's you. And again, all of these thoughts are instantiating more yous. The point I'm making is that, of course, we don't instantiate a new body, self, for each and every thought we have. But we do. It's raining. That's the noise you're hearing. It's metal building. Sorry. All kinds of sounds. Yes, I know. Pill time. So, back to my point. What Buddhism is saying is, yes, that is exactly what you're doing. They're just, all those bodies and all those yous, they're taking place right here. That is what actually is happening in our lives, is moment to moment, birth, death, birth, death, birth, death. And you know this is right. You should be getting tingles right now. Because once that pimple showed up, you were a different person. You are a different person. And how you treat it, you are a different person. And you will know that person over and over again as you go throughout the day. And when you see somebody look at you and look away, you will be making decisions about you. A new you, who now is inculcating the impression that you think that that person had of you with your makeup on your pimple. We are constantly renewing, if you will, our vow to selfdom. This is part of the samsaric dis-ease. This is the story we tell ourselves to hang on to a sense of I, of identity, of self-dom. Because it's not a unique self, is it? It's constantly changing. So it's more of a kingdom we own, of selves that we assemble under one umbrella that we give a name. Betty, Kai, Letitia, Bob, right? The great ubiquitous Bob. That's what a self is. It's a temporary condition of thousands of judgments and decisions made that we construct as an identity. Now, if you can follow that example, then it also follows, and this is the Nagarjuna part, that if you can understand that that's what's happening right now, then it shouldn't be a great leap for you to understand what is going on between those moments. Because certainly if you understand that moment to moment, you are a fluid, changing, vast array of decisions identified under the rubric of a self, that there never really is a self. That really what's happening is selfing. There's a process at work here that we're identifying. It's never a static thing. In other words, self is not a noun, it's a verb, it's selfing, which is why we have a word called being. Because we don't just be, we are being. Because we're an action, we're a moving thing, an inertia, a kinetic momentum of conditions that we're constantly grouping in our mind consciousness as an integral thing. But really, we're just kind of this great haboob, this big dust cloud of decisions that's shedding some decisions and pulling in new ones. And we're just moving through time as a set of conditions and tendencies. And so imagine, if you will, that we're all doing this, and suddenly somebody takes away the clock. The sand just goes, whoop. There's nothing there. Without the consciousnesses and the momentum and the energy and work happening, there is nothing. It's the work with energy that creates this illusion of selfdom that is this dynamic, moving thing through time. It is that same momentum that amalgamates and conglomerates into a womb to instantiate into the dust cloud, your own dust cloud, with some of the kinetics and energies and dust cloud of the parents. There's a trio in you. And that trio is from other trios, right? So in that way, this dust cloud has some dust particles from vastly distant dust clouds. But those aren't previous lives, because your life is something you are manifesting moment to moment. And when your sands cease having momentum and you're extinct, your body dies, then they're not connected to anything. They are ephemeral things you created. But you created them in this environment of samsara. So they're temporal, they're ephemeral, they're created by your mind, your consciousnesses. And where there is no consciousnesses before or after, there is no karma. Without karma, you don't exist. You're simply not there. There's no engine to make you there. You are the engine while you're alive of self and I. Without your engine, your consciousnesses, there is no I or self. So that means that your construction of a self or I, because it's an ephemeral thing, isn't about a thing to begin with. It's a conjecture. It's an experience. And I challenge you to look anywhere on the chart of elements in science, anywhere, and find an element called experience. That's a consciousness thing. But we're happening in a space, we're being in an environment, but that environment doesn't include us. We are a part of it, and it is a construct just as we are. So when Nagarjuna talks about emptiness, he's not talking about a vacuum. He's saying that if you look about the entire universe, there are no consciousnesses creating dust storms of human experience that, in fact, our human experience is a dust storm in the midst of no other experience. Experience is the domain of consciousness and the mind. And we have the great tool with Buddhism to clearly see that entire magnificent process at play without being sucked in to ownership and possession, creating suffering and pain for ourselves or others. Because if we understand how amazing it is that we can have this experience and embrace it and see its magnificent process and savor every moment of it, suddenly it's not just about self, it's about everything, anything that can experience. And if it's suffering, we feel that suffering and we want to alleviate it. If it's angry, we want to be careful and protect ourselves from it, but we also want to do what we can to alleviate that. And that may just be practice, because in that preciousness, there is this wonderful word, dignity. Because once you see how fragile this existence and this experience is, you feel a sense of responsibility, a sense of protection, a sense of preciousness that is a dignity that demands more than simply valuing yourself, because yourself is such a fragile thing that's seeing the entire play of it. Even just amongst the billions on this planet, let alone the universe. How could you allow yourself or anyone else to diminish that dignity? They simply don't understand. Right? You don't have to fight them physically because now you're not dignifying it. But you may need to do as Buddha did in the Gongyo chapter and claim that you're not here anymore. Go away. So that person or those people who have that distinct hatred and anger and destructive energy play themselves out and at some point long for your return. Will that happen in your lifetime? Maybe not. In the meantime, though, you go to your mandala and you actively change that momentum in you to influence your environment with this clarity of karma, of Buddha. And in your universe, in this universe, you push that equanimity and beauty out into the world, of which you are integrally a part. And you affect the world around you. You will affect the negative energy as well. You will influence it. Some very quickly and right away, and they will come to you and beg forgiveness. And you won't give them forgiveness, you'll give them guidance. And with compassion, you'll lead them to value themselves and the dignity of life. And truly, this is what Nagarjuna was trying to teach. In the second meditation, I solemnly praise the true law of self-manifestation. It's the first thing we say. What I've just described to you is self-manifestation. Into this life, through this life, and out of this life. And the law is, this is the life process. This is Myoho Renge Kyo. This is the ultimate dignity. The core of the Juryo chapter of Honmon. The supreme law hidden in the depths of the Lotus Sutra. Not so hidden, really. Until you study, it's hidden. Then you get it. The inscrutable essence of the universe, the perfect fusion of volition and energy, bioenergy, chi, taiji, willingness, volition, idea, the nidana, the entity of time without beginning, because time is our samsaric illusion. The entity of Buddha of absolute freedom, because when you awaken to the reality of this situation, you're free, you're liberated from suffering, right? The eternal manifestation of the 10 worlds, the embodiment of Ichinen Sanzen, the oneness of person and law, the manifestation of all phenomena as both a reflection and a result of my own making in this universe. This is what I've been describing, isn't it? I also give thanks for the immeasurable benefits I've received. The experience of this life. Without this experience of this life, I would not know Buddha. The whole of Buddhism is in that second meditation. The other ones are important, but that one, to me, That's the Dharma. Oh, okay. Gone on long enough. I hope you found something in that to turn a light on. If all it did was raise a bunch of questions, please write them down, put them in the comments. Discuss. This could be, I mean, we could talk about this subject for the whole of Buddhism, but that's it in a nutshell. I hope that was helpful, and if not, let me know that as well. Let me know what I left out, what doesn't make sense. And I have total courage in pursuing this, because to me, this is the root of our practice. And with that, I can't thank you enough. You guys are amazing. It's courageous to consider this stuff. It truly is. And so I honor you, and I appreciate you. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. I'll see you soon. Hey, thank you for being here. Did you know there's a third way you can help support this channel, and it won't cost you a cent? Yep, if you are not able to be a patron on Patreon, or use the PayPal me at .com at Sifu Sylvain, because you don't have the financial fortune to help support this channel right now. You, as I say, always support this channel by watching, but you can also help us grow so that maybe one day we can get over 10,000 subscribers, and YouTube will grace us with monetization. It's not a lot, but if you can make sure you're subscribed and share a video, like a simple one, just go into the search criteria and type monk, and you'll have a video that'll come up that's been up for years about what is a monk. You know, it's called monk, who, how, where, something like that. That might be a great introduction to somebody who doesn't understand what a monk is to begin with. It's a tool. Use this channel as a tool to help you with your bodhisattva practice, and share a video to somebody who you think, oh, I know somebody who'll benefit from watching this. And in that way, you can help us grow. And that's a really good way to help your practice along as well. So just wanted to drop that in on you, in case that's something that you might find useful. Take care of yourself again, and I'll see you soon. Bye.